why are gold and silver going down in this time of crisis? And people need dollars in times of uncertainty. If oil spikes up to $100 a barrel when it was like 70, and the Fed prints in response to that, and gold and silver go right back up.
I mean, we both have warned people the volatility is going to be just off the charts. The number of dollars is actually it's disappearing. The dollars need to expand at an accelerating rate to keep the system alive. In addition to the deflation, there's also an enormous paper market on top of the physical gold and silver. So there was probably a huge paper sell-off.
The spot prices in gold in London have gone down more than the futures prices in New York. So doesn't that suggest that it's a physical sell-off more than it's a paper sell-off? Unless the physical market in London isn't really a physical market. But when I hear Keith Weiner talking about that, the spread between London and New York gets tighter, that means that physical is being bid up because London is a physical market.
I know where this is going in the end. The Fed's going to print $10 trillion in a weekend, and then everything's going to go absolutely crazy ballistic, and then gold and silver most of all.
Why are gold and silver going down in this time of crisis? And I will add to that, gold and silver not just going down, but open interest in gold futures is right now at 400,000 bull, 400,000 exactly. And the only other time it broke below 400,000 was during the 2008 financial crisis. So we're going into those areas as well. It looks like a financial crisis is about to break out.
Yes, it
Not
does.
not not necessarily because of private credit, but private credit is just the weakest link in a chain of very, very weak links. And when you break, maybe you have to break two, three, or four of them, or I don't know how many, but it means the next one is in line, and we don't know what it is, but it's coming. It's coming.
Mario had the best analogy. He
What?
said it's like when a tsunami hits, like first the tide goes out, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, everything's very calm, but it's
Hmm.
weird, right? You
Yeah.
see all this weird stuff happening, but like no one's in any like in present immediate danger. I mean, they are in great danger. They just don't know it. But it looks calm, except there's like fish flopping on the sand where there used to be water like a few minutes ago.
Calm before the storm isn't a cliche here. It's a statistical warning. As Rafi Farber points out here, gold futures open interest sits at 400,000, a threshold only previously breached in the 2008 financial crisis, signaling heightened systemic vulnerability. Private credit may be only one weak link, but cascading failures could trigger wider liquidity shocks. Retail investors often miss the analogies. Mario's tsunami metaphor captures the unseen risk lurking beneath surface calm. Next, Rafi Farber discusses how these weak links could set the stage for broader financial turbulence and investor decisions.
That's the monetary. I'm telling you, people, viewers, the monetary system is exactly like that right now. The tide has gone out. It's still calm. The market's still, functional. But, if you were to look at the warning signs, I mean, things are about to smash, absolutely smash.
We're going to talk first about gold and silver going down. I'll give a very basic answer to that question, and then you can elaborate on it. But my basic answer to the question, why are gold and silver going down? Because people need dollars in times of uncertainty. If oil spikes up to $100 a barrel when it was like 70 a few weeks before, then all these businesses have all these expenses that they didn't know that they would have. Now they have to make sure they have enough cash to keep servicing their debt or they go out of business. So everyone does it at the same time, and they mostly they'll sell first where their profits are the biggest, and that's been gold and silver. So they sell their whatever positions they have, they raise dollars, and they need those in time of crisis.
The apparent stability in markets masks urgent dollar demand pressures. As Rafi Farber points out here, spikes in oil and unexpected expenses are forcing businesses to liquidate assets, including gold and silver, to preserve liquidity. Headlines focus on commodity weakness, but the underlying driver is synchronized dollar hoarding, not metal fundamentals. Investors need to consider how such simultaneous sell-offs distort pricing signals and misrepresent risk. Next, Rafi Farber shows why these moves aren't manipulation, but strategic capital preservation amid mounting macro stress.
But then that is ended when every business is doing that, and their business is getting lower and lower and lighter because we're in a crisis. And then the Fed prints in response to that, and gold and silver go right back up. So, you know, Do what you
Yeah,
want.
I mean, we both have warned people the volatility is going to be just off the charts. I mean, I remember making a video specifically saying like you're going to be absolutely stunned by the volatility of the
Yeah.
metals. And
Anyone saying
unfortunately, it's in,
anyone
yeah,
saying that it's like manipulation and they're manipulating them, just don't even listen to that. I'm not saying people who say manipulation, everything they say is crap. It's not. But people who automatically go to this, oh, I'm upset because gold and silver should go up in a time. It shouldn't go up in a time of this kind of crisis. It should go up in a kind of crisis the Fed is responding to, which they
yeah.
haven't yet. So
So
it's not manipulation.
the
Anyway.
way to think about this is that the number of dollars is actually going, it's disappearing. The dollars need to expand at an accelerating rate to keep the system alive.
Volatility isn't chaos. It's a system recalibrating to liquidity shortages. As Rafi Farber points out here, gold and silver may drop initially, but rebound as the Fed injects dollars, reflecting reactive policy rather than market manipulation. Investors often mistake temporary declines for systemic failure, ignoring that dollar contraction, not trading schemes, drives price swings. Portfolio strategy must account for these oscillations, balancing physical assets and liquid reserves. Next, Rafi Farber discusses how dollar supply dynamics dictate metals' real-time trajectories and investor risk exposure.
And if it doesn't, they actually start to vaporize because when the dollar meets its debt, they annihilate each other and then they leave the system, the bank dollars. So if there are less dollars out there, then by definition, it's harder. It's like gravity, right? It's harder to keep going for things to keep going up. And especially if dollars start disappearing, we go into a deflationary tailspin, it's impossible for things to go up because there are less dollars in which for things to go up in dollar terms,
I
right?
believe it is
Now,
fewer dollars because
fewer
dollars
dollars, I'm sorry.
is a count noun. Count noun.
However, where people were shocked was that metals went down harder because I would expect. I mean, if just a normie guy. In fact, I did expect. I would have thought that gold, especially, would have gone down slower than, say, stocks, bonds, and crypto. If you were to just look at the last 3 weeks, you'd say crypto was the safe haven, not gold and silver. I
Mhm.
mean, even though if you zoom out a little bit farther, like crypto shat the bed for earlier. I mean, it lost like 40% of its value.
Deflationary pressures are often invisible until they hit asset prices. As Rafi Farber points out here, disappearing dollars make it harder for all assets to appreciate, explaining why metals sometimes fall faster than riskier assets like crypto. Investors misled by safe haven rhetoric underestimate how liquidity and supply constraints distort real returns. The headlines may emphasize volatility as manipulation, but it's a fundamental cash flow mismatch playing out in real time. Next, Rafi Farber unravels why metals' apparent underperformance could signal deeper systemic stress and portfolio implications.
But if you were just to look at the last 3 weeks, you'd say, well, crypto held the line, so this must be some great rotation into crypto. I don't know everything that's going on under the scenes, under the hood. I just know that in addition to the deflation, there's also an enormous paper market on top of the physical gold and silver. So there was probably a huge paper sell-off. I'm not sure. I didn't see any evidence that like people were running with their golden necklaces to the pawn shop to get rid of them before the price was going to dip lower. I didn't see a ton of that. So I'm guessing this was just a paper sell-off and not a physical sell-off.
I would question that. I'm not sure if I'm right about this, but the spot market, the spot prices in gold in London have gone down more than the futures prices in New York. So doesn't that suggest that it's a physical sell-off more than it's a paper sell-off?
Market narratives often mislead when paper and physical assets diverge. As Rafi Farber points out here, the last 3 weeks saw crypto outperform while gold and silver faced heavy paper-driven pressure, highlighting liquidity rotations that aren't apparent to most investors. Spot prices in London declining more than New York futures suggest nuanced market mechanics, possibly a disguised physical sell-off. This distinction matters for portfolio strategy, signaling where real risk lies versus headline volatility. Next, Rafi Farber discusses how these paper versus physical dynamics could influence future allocation decisions and risk management.
Okay, then maybe it is. Maybe it absolutely is.
Unless the physical market in London isn't really a physical market. But when I hear Keith Weiner talking about that when the spread between London and New York gets tighter, that means that physical is being bid up because London is a physical market. Whatever. I mean, whatever's happening is happening. This is very similar to pre-financial crisis price movement.
But
So
why
yeah,
would if I had a promise for gold and I had physical gold, why would I sell the physical gold first and not the promise for gold? Because that's more ephemeral.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe it is manipulation.
Uh, I don't know. I'd have to think about that and come up with a theory. I can't
Yeah,
do it
it's
right
honestly
now.
not. I mean, it's not that important. This is just sort of we're just sort of like documenting the end game.
London New York spreads reveal hidden stress in the gold market. As Rafi Farber points out here, tighter spreads may indicate real physical demand, not just paper trading, echoing patterns seen before the 2008 financial crisis. Investors rarely see that selling actual metal first could reflect deeper liquidity and sentiment signals than futures alone. Wall Street narratives about manipulation often overshadow these fundamental dynamics, leaving portfolios exposed. Next, Rafi Farber shows why tracking spreads and physical flows is critical to understanding metals' endgame behavior and systemic risks.
I know where this is going in the end. The Fed's going to print $10 trillion in a weekend, and
Yeah.
then everything's going to go absolutely crazy ballistic, and then gold and silver most of all. It is hard. I mean, if you're on the fence, if you're like, I don't know, are Phil and Rafi right? Maybe I'll have a little bit of. I understand the evidence presented in the last 3 weeks. You know, gold didn't do what we would hope it would do. You know, on the physical term. Am I worried about it? No, I'm not. I have the serenity of the Buddha about this whole thing. I'm not concerned at all. I know where this road ends. I just don't know the direct voyage, you know, the twists and turns along the way.
Well, that kind of it nicely segs us into a subtopic that we were discussing off record. But first, before I get into that, guess which metal is still at its all-time record high?
Iridium.
Yes. It was iridium. That was the answer. You have a stack of iridium. We just
Yeah,
well now we know. Next time the world ends, I'll just buy a
next
bunch of
time I do.
iridium.
Well, you're the only one who stacked iridium, so
You can't call 1 ounce a stack. I mean, I could cut it in half and then put one on the other. Does that count? No,
yeah, we
melting
did.
point's too high. Okay. So in the same way that you are not stoic, but calm and at peace with gold and silver's price moving over the last few days. And so am I. That doesn't really it's a little bit unnerving. I mean, I can't say
It's
I'm
annoying. It's
yeah,
annoying, is what it is. Because I'm like, I know whatever this is, it's not going to stick. But,
yeah.
but like right now is when I'm desperately trying to convince people I know and care about and love to like get some stacks, and the physical immediate evidence is contrary to what I'm saying.
Extreme liquidity injections can reset market psychology in unpredictable ways. As Rafi Farber points out here, a potential $10 trillion Fed print could unleash chaotic volatility, with gold and silver surging unpredictably. Short-term underperformance in metals doesn't negate their role as real assets. Investors need calm analysis rather than panic. Physical demand signals, like stacking iridium, reflect long-term hedging strategies invisible in headlines. Next, Rafi Farber talks about how these extreme liquidity events will affect precious metals and investor positioning over the coming weeks.
But
So
that's the thing. When you look the most stupid is when you are the most right. But yeah. And when you look like a genius is probably, it could be a time to
yeah, to
stop to
calm,
to to
humble
calm down
yourself.
a little
Yeah,
bit. Right.
that's
Um,
true. That's very true.
right. That's it. But that's a sign that you're on the right side of things because you always look wrong no matter where it is. The end game that I see for the monetary system of how we're going to stabilize it. This could be me just fantasizing, but it makes sense to me. There's a line in the Torah that I think it's in is it in Numbers? I don't remember exactly, but it describes a pilgrim who is trying to bring a sacrifice to the temple, but he's too far away and he can't like carry his cow, on a wagon to go to the temple. So he has to sell his cow for money, for silver coins. And then the verse, what do you do? Like then you buy a cow or a goat or whatever it is in Jerusalem, and then you bring that to the temple. Much easier to do. So, but how do you do that? Like you can't. The verse says "Vitzarta kesef yadecha." You have to wrap the silver in your hand. Like it says those words. So like you can't do it by bank transfer. You can't do it electronically. I know there was no electronic stuff, but you couldn't do it by paper. You have to do it with money, right? There's no derivatives on the Temple Mount.
There's no crying in baseball!
There's actual music coming from instruments. There's an actual barbecue that isn't fake meat. There's actual gold and silver of people trading things around for sacrifices. There's no derivatives.
There's no crying in baseball! There's no crying in baseball! No crying!
Historical examples illuminate practical monetary principles that modern markets overlook. As Rafi Farber points out here, the Torah's example of using silver coins for transactions underscores the necessity of tangible money, not electronic or derivative-based constructs. Investors often underestimate how paper instruments can detach from physical reality, creating hidden systemic risks. The lesson for portfolios is clear. Tangible assets maintain integrity even when electronic markets distort signals. Next, Rafi Farber unravels how these historical frameworks inform contemporary strategies for managing liquidity and physical asset allocation.
There's a lot of historical documentation of Gentiles donating a lot of gold and silver to the temple because they wanted to be part of it. There's a lot of that, and that's fine. But what can come of that? Well, if you have a central bank that that's primordially religious and sees the value of not stealing as ultimate and commanded by God, run by priests that are extremely holy people, then what would be a better central bank than the Third Temple? It would be you could deposit the gold and silver there. We would keep it for you, like underneath wherever the Ark of the Covenant is, in some room there. And then we'd give you
Give you
temple
notes.
credits or something. You don't have to. You can have your own central bank in your own country if you want to trust that. It's not like we're going to force ourselves on everybody, but it would be. I think it could work.
We don't need a central bank at all. I'd rather have private banking, just pure private local.
Yeah, that's fine too. I mean,
Mhm.
but it would
There's no
it
need
would
for a central bank.
it would be a very trustworthy bank. That would be the purpose of it, at least for the wider world. Jews would have their own stuff to do there, but the temple is really a temple for all of humanity. It's not just for Jews.
There you go. And you'd be the treasurer of it. You'd be the central bank.
That's what I want to do. Not that we wouldn't impose our banknotes on the world at all. Just anyone who wants them, anyone who wants to trust us, you can if you want to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Not forcing anything on anyone.
That's great. Well, let's hope that comes to pass. That would be amazing, Rafi.
It would be, and I'm seeing it. I'm seeing.
Trust and transparency are the real currency in banking, far beyond interest rates or monetary policy. As Rafi Farber points out here, the concept of a central bank modeled on the temple, holding gold and silver under strict ethical stewardship, underscores the importance of absolute reliability and public confidence. Investors often overlook that systemic trust is what enables liquidity and smooth functioning, not just paper promises. This vision challenges conventional central banks and highlights how tangible, secure assets could redefine global financial stability. Next, Rafi Farber discusses the practical implications of integrating ethical and private banking models into modern markets.
So it's the same reason that I'm not worried about being here is the reason that you're not worried about gold and silver going down, because you know that gold and silver is money. Well, I know that we're indestructible, and I know that we're supposed to be here, and I see things always converging around here, and I know my history, so I might die. I don't think I will. I mean, the chances of me getting hit by a bomb are vanishingly small. But I know that I'm supposed to be here because I see history that way. Um, it's the Jews in America who are really worried about us, and we're like, hey, relax. It's just a war.
Like, yeah, first time.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
So I have a question. The news in America, I mean, from the various sources, it's very polarized. There are people saying Iran is defeated. This is just the mopping up operation. There's nothing left. And then there's the other side saying like Iran can withstand this for 10 years. It's an existential crisis for them. And we're just gonna, when America gives up and goes home eventually, Iran is gonna dominate the Straits and start bullying all the neighbors around because they're mad about what just happened. Where do you know?
Maybe they will.
I mean, I think the end game's gonna hit first anyway. I think they're both wrong.
Yeah. I mean, both sides are contributing to the end of the dollar.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't know that they're both fighting for. They're on the same team. They're like, let's kill the
yeah.
dollar. Trump's like, let's kill the dollar. Iran's like, okay, we'll help you kill the dollar.
Polarized narratives often mask the systemic consequences of geopolitical events. As Rafi Farber points out here, both extremes of US coverage on Iran misread the larger macro trend. Both sides, unintentionally, undermine the dollar's global dominance. Understanding that gold and silver retain intrinsic monetary value provides perspective, highlighting why short-term fear is misplaced for investors. War risks and currency debasement intersect, creating structural pressures on portfolios that few analysts emphasize. Next, Rafi Farber talks about how these geopolitical dynamics accelerate the dollar's decline and influence commodity allocations.
And they're fighting
I
together.
I guess my question was, it sounds like Iran is doing better in the war than the initial estimates. Is that what your analysis is? Or do you?
Well, Iran is sort of like Hamas in the sense that they don't. The only thing they have to do to win is survive.
Yeah,
Israel has to destroy the regime completely, and make Iran back into what it was before 1979, which was an ally. And we've got nothing against the Iranian people at all. I mean, we have a lot of friends there, who are with us. That's why Mossad has such an easy time breaking in and finding exactly where the leaders are, because everybody in the country hates them and they want to help us. So that's what makes it
yeah.
so easy. Um, but could they survive? Yeah, they could. And if they survive, they win. And they'll keep the straits blocked, and that will ensure the dollar is destroyed. And once the dollar is destroyed, Iran can open up the straits again. Um, I don't know what's going to happen.
Geopolitics can dictate financial trajectories more than any central bank report. As Rafi Farber points out here, Iran's ability to merely survive could threaten the dollar by controlling strategic oil straits, a detail lost in mainstream headlines. The nuance is that regime survival, not traditional military victory, becomes the key variable for macro stability. Investors, ignoring these structural pressures, risk misallocating assets and underestimating currency risk.